There's this ever-going rise in fans trying to paint Robin from Teen Titans Go as a victim, saying that the show is simply about how much the writers can make him suffer, and honestly, I'm pretty conflicted over the matter. Because yeah, we have seen the clips of him being hit with a sinister April Fool's joke that his parents are still alive, and have had episode openings where he is straight up grifted by Trigon, but the thing is, this is a show on its way to 500 episodes. A lot more diabolical stuff happens than simply the big clips that blow up on TikTok. And as someone who is over halfway through the entire series, the Robin is a victim narrative is something that I simultaneously agree with, yet heavily disagree with. Because while I may agree that Robin tends to be on the butt end of a lot of jokes, I wouldn't agree that it's exclusive to him, and I wouldn't agree that it isn't deserved in the slightest. And you know what? I'll take it a step further. If I was in control of this show, I don't think I would change it either. Because when you really think about it, this characterization is one of the greatest deconstruction of Robin in the Bat family in all of media. You guys need to understand that Robin isn't on the outside of the craziness that is the Teen Titans and he just gets caught up in the mixture. No, he legitimately is the crazy. It's just that he is surrounded by other psychopaths and they sort of just all balance each other out. Now, it's already known that Teen Titans Go is a goofy residual project to aim at a younger audience, since the core demographic of the 03 show was starting to age out, and with it being the spiritual successor but with more lighthearted tone, it made the exaggeration of these characters' core traits for this newer series ultimately inevitable. Cyborg, who was fun-loving but reliable, is now the loud guy yelling for meatball parties. Starfire, who was naive but complex, is now just the kooky alien lady with the weird customs. Again, this is all known. But what may not be known, especially with this being a show that sort of has a generational divide in who watches what seasons, is that these characters actually go through another layer of flanderization when comparing their current selves to their early TTG counterparts. They are essentially parodies within a parody. Raven went from sarcastic, moody, but empathetic in 03 to straight up antisocial goth in early TTG to now doing things that are indistinguishable from the rest of the Zaniacs of the likes of Starfire, Beast Boy, and Cyborg. She went from being missing during certain episodes' climaxes because she couldn't be bothered to now being an active participant in the antics. Robin's change follows a similar trajectory. In the 03 series, Robin was a complete incompetent leader, but he did have his flaws, such as his intense, obsessive, and sometimes paranoid behavior. They just took these intense traits and exacerbated them for TDG to the point that these traits aren't just hints anymore, but are the entire character. He's obsessive and controlling to an absurd amount, and over the course of the show, with them becoming more self-aware, it's not just Robin is obsessive, it's Robin is obsessive about being obsessive. As whole plots revolve around him acknowledging that he is a control freak and concluding with him having no desire whatsoever to change. This characterization inherently lends itself for him to be on the opposite side of narrative karma, which is often why you see the boy Wonder catching a random stray or two per episode, whether through physical or mental abuse. And when you're watching specific parts of the series from this isolated manner, without proper context, it's pretty reasonable to say, wow, the writers really hate Robin specifically. Now, if you are of this belief, you might be scratching your head as to why the writers would do this in the first place, especially if the mantle has been such a prominent part of the hero community. Well, it's because Robin has always been the biggest self-insert character going back to his 1940s creation. He was designed as the kid audience surrogate to let the bright-eyed young readers imagine themselves fighting crime in Gotham, the antithesis to Batman as a scary gothic detective. He was fundamentally built to be the POV character in the DC cosmology, and that main character association never really left him. So when Robin shows up in a group dynamic, whether it's Titans, Young Justice, or even a random Justice League crossover, he always gets pulled into the spotlight, not because he's the strongest or the smartest, but because he's the most narratively convenient. He's famous, he's iconic, he's Batman's brand extension. Writers love to build stories around him because audiences are attached to that youth and are attached to that underdog story of a powerless kid being prominent enough to lead a team of juggernauts. This even extends to the 03 Teen Titans series, as his prominence was so great that despite each season having a different Titan as the primary focus, he would often overlap people in their own stories. He had the most inherent love interest, he was always the most competent person in the room, and has even taken down other Titans on different occasions. And this creates a fascinating tension because on paper, Robin is the least impressive Titan as he has no powers, yet in practice, he's always positioned as the protagonist. protagonist. This drive to keep him on that pedestal pushes writers to constantly keep advertising his skills, with this unintended effect of sort of diminishing the brilliance of other Titans, so that people can never truly pay attention to Robin's fundamental inadequacies. That conflict between being narratively central but functionally underpowered is exactly what Teen Titans Go sets out to deconstruct and play around with. Instead of trying to dance around it, TTG shines a giant spotlight on that disconnect, fixating on this idea of Robin simultaneously being the protagonist while also being the clear weak link, to the point that it becomes a joke in itself. And if I am tasked to make a hypercomedic interpretation of the character, this is the perfect avenue to go with, turning Robin into a greater meta-commentary on the function of the Bat family and how they have often crossed that line from simply being cool humans that can fight way above their weight class, their ingenuity, to just straight up characters built to undermine whoever they're up against or even working with. Teen Titans Go reinvents Robin as this character that is obsessed with living out his ideal hero dreams of being a protagonist, despite deep down knowing that he isn't up to par, and it reflects in the defectiveness of his team, but he is still delusional enough to consistently lie to himself every day. Now, an extension of this inverted interpretation of this character comes with him being specifically characterized through his insecurities, contrasting that inflated sense of importance with the man that is filled to the brim with self-consciousness. Raven's got dark magic, Cyborg's got advanced tech, Beast Boy shapeshifts, and Starfire is literally a solar-powered alien warrior princess, and our boy Robin just has a cool stick. He clings onto his leadership position as that is something he can soundly say that he brings to the table. But this is where I start to say that the attacks against Robin are somewhat justified, seeing in how extreme he takes the role of leader despite his massive amounts of incompetence in said role. I've heard the arguments that if the Titans just listened to Robin and treated him with respect, then they would be an effective team, except that Sage completely ignores that if Robin was taken seriously, they would probably all be dead. Robin has the tendency to push the Titans to work like a dog if he has his way with things, and has extremely aggressive tendencies, canonically being rather insufferable to be around. He is the quickest to pull out a bow staff for the mildest of inconveniences, and yells about 5 times per episode. His obsession with being leader is practically his only character trait, yet his stubbornness, obsession, and pride make him incapable of actually being a capable leader, even if he has a competent team. Like in the episode The Best Robin, where Robin refused to call his elite team of other Robins because he pridefully wanted to prove that he was the best Robin. Or Some of Their Parts, where Robin splits the team into their ideal emotional parts to form a greater Teen Titans team, and while they were elite, he decided to abandon the team as he figured that splitting himself into 5 parts would form the greatest team, which subsequently caused the opposite of that to happen. The crazy part is that because of his lackluster nature as a leader, when his authority is challenged by a leader that is actually not even good but just decent, he has to resort to underhanded tactics to get his team back, as that is basically all he can offer, such as anytime he comes across Kid Flash. His obsessive personality, crazily enough, also finds root in his O3 counterpart, a flanderized version of that same Robin fighting demons during that Slade arc. That paranoia, hallucination, self-destructive obsession is just now channeled into his own team to a comical degree. The insecurity is the through line, where Robin can't mentally live with being the least powerful, so he overcompensates by demanding he be the most respected. He would rather be utterly hated by his team than to be ignored, meaning that a lot of the harm that he faces is retroactively through his own decisions. Clinging onto this thread of authority is ironically the biggest detriment to Robin. It would make his life so much easier if he just chilled. If he just simply relaxed and leaned into the team's antics, he'd probably be respected more too. Heck, I mean, half of the crazy things that the team gets into only happen because Robin forces them to go on an adventure when they just want to couch rock. And 99% of the time, those adventures have absolutely nothing to do with crime fighting. Like Season 4 episode Labor Day, where Robin tricks the team into working on what was supposed to be their Labor Day off, in which they end up wasting an entire year in the process. Or Season 5 episode The Groover, where Robin forces the team to go to the Grand Canyon and ends up being in a body cast because he got seriously injured. If you know you're a bad leader, you might as well coast, instead of making a bad situation worse by being overbearing and therefore hated. His consistent chase for acknowledgement is actively belittling himself in the minds of other Titans, which is why they sort of joke about his baby hands or point out how short he is despite Beast Boy literally being shorter. It's a vicious cycle where his insecurities make him controlling, his controlling nature makes him unbearable, his unbearable behavior makes him the team's punching bag, which therefore makes him more insecure. To Robin's credit though, it should be firmly acknowledged that the Titans in this version are pretty much their most inept versions as a collective, to the point that they are barely functioning people, let alone heroes. But I think that's also to Robin's benefit, because since he is surrounded by the most utterly useless yet chaotic version of the Titans, which has been shown in many crossovers, he automatically has his deranged tendencies overshadowed to a good bit. There was never an argument on if the Titans were dysfunctional, because they are by a mile, but I need to drill in your guys' head that Robin is not the victim. Rather is he the ringleader in the madness. This team needs leadership, and unfortunately, the only leader they got is Robin, the dude that's simultaneously overbearing yet underpowered. An incompetent team with an insufferable leader. That's the formula they are working with, and they lean into it heavily. The perfect episode to encapsulate the Titans has got to be Season 5's episode, The Fight. In this episode, the gang realizes that they haven't done actual crime fighting in a bit, with each of their flashbacks involving fighting is them fighting messes they cause themselves, specifically involving food. Then a giant robot finally appears for them to have this giant battle that, I can't lie, is kinda hard. The team clears out Brother Blood and his bots in epic fashion, using their unique abilities, and at the end of said battle, the team realizes that being a good hero is actually too much work, and that they would rather go back home and learn about real estate. And you know Robin, the so-called leader with ironclad discipline, and is just bullied and held back by his team. Well, yeah, he actively encourages this decision the entire episode. It's the show admitting out loud that these characters are fundamentally terrible at their jobs. They're not protectors. In fact, the show firmly sets them up to be losers, which is why they're easily able to be justified to being the butt of the joke, especially when it comes to physical violence, because it's not just a Robin thing. Slapstick comedy is just sort of the show's main shtick. Like, Beast Boy is probably up there with Robin as far as the most random strays, as they are both most likely to get hit by a tractor and it will just have no connection to the plot whatsoever. But then you'll have Cyborg, who by far gets the most violent attacks, because while they can't show a human arm getting torn apart in bloody fashion, they sure can show Cyborg's robot parts being put through the ringer. You would think his steel body is less durable than human flesh the way they be doing, bro. Even Starfire and Raven, while admittedly less, get their fair share of strays for the dumbest reasons. The entire show thrives on cartoon violence. It's not just Robin is singled out, it's we can't think of anything else, so let's just have this character getting punched and call it a day. Here's the truth. Teen Titans Go is summed up as a parody on the human experience, commenting on the film industry, generational divides, holidays, politics, and everything under the sun. But its greatest fundamental parody is of the Titans themselves in their different levels of perception amongst the media. For Robin specifically, ironically for a character of this caliber, his parody is about putting a dash of comedic realism on that bad family insanity that often goes overlooked in media. We ferment that stress by placing him on the worst possible team ever in a cartoon that thrives on fart jokes, slapstick comedy, and meta commentary. Robin suffers because he can't relax, as he is subconsciously chasing this personal validation of his heroism and usefulness through the prosperity of the Teen Titans. But because he lacks such basic abilities such as critical thinking, and he is surrounded by chaotic train wrecks personified, this dream of prosperity will always be just that, a dream. But that's what makes Teen Titans work. Like in the two-part episode titled Flashback, we get a flashback into one of the many origins this show has for the Titans. In this, we find a young and naive Robin who is recruiting a team after realizing that he can't handle Jump City alone. His character is initially soft and optimistic, but we see cracks in that facade whenever he is around a future Titans member. Now, because of his soft and submissive personality, he ends up initially getting his entire tower and team taken by Kid Flash. That's when he comes to realize that Starfire, Raven, Beast Boy, and Fleshy Guy are his perfect teammates, because not only are they equally as conniving, idiotic, and chaotic, but they bring out the worst in them. And to Robin, being his worst version, screaming and being demanding, is the best way he finds to be a leader. Robin and the rest of the Titans are genuinely a match made in a dumpster fire, all actively bringing out the worst in each other. But we need to group them together permanently, because we can't have them running around and bringing down an actually competent team.